Hi everyone, my name is Major Jess, and for this video, I will discuss the Greek art. Ancient Greek art emphasized the importance and accomplishments of human beings. Even though much of the Greek art was meant to honor the gods, those very gods were created in the image of humans. Greek art was characterized by its depiction of beauty in an idealized manner. So there are four periods of Greek art. Ancient Greek art spans a period between 900 and 30 BCE and is divided into four periods, which are the geometric, archaic, classical, and Hellenistic period. Throughout that period, artists worked with a wide variety of materials, including bronze and stone for sculpture, terracotta for vases and figurines, various pigments for painting, and gold, silver, and bronze for coinage. In the geometric period, not only were geometric patterns dominant but so too were abstract figures, especially horses, military, and funerary scenes. Beginning in the 7th century or BCE, the archaic period ushered in an increasingly naturalistic style, especially in the depiction of human form. The classical period, often defined by the Greek defeat of the Persians in 479 BCE, ushered in what is now known as the Golden Age of Greece. The final transition to the Hellenistic period, which lasted from about 323 through 30 BCE, occurred following the death of Alexander the Great, who famously spread the Greek culture into the lands of this far-reaching conquest. So there are five main forms of Greek art. These are the architecture, sculpture, painting, pottery, and jewelry. So the example for the Greek architecture is the Erechtheion Acropolis. Erechtheion Temple was built by the Menelaus between 421 and 406 BC. This temple got its name from the legendary Erecthonius, who is mentioned as the ruler of Athens and a brave king. The remains of the temple show the 6 figures, which are made up of white and black marble from Mount Pentelicon and Eleusis. So the example for the Greek sculpture is the raised bronzes. These tremendous statues found in the Sea of Southern Italy in 1972. This is one of the original Greek bronze statues survived. Most of the classical nudes in museums were carved in marble in the Roman era, as productions of such rare and now largely lost originals. We have the example for the Greek painting is the spring fresco. This fresco depicts lilies of papyrus growing between volcanic cracks while birds can be seen flying around flowers. This fresco originally came from Building Delta, situated in Room 2 on the ground floor. Due to the content and context of the plants and birds, it is generally believed to be a depiction of spring, although it is also known as lilies of papyrus fresco. For the Greek pottery, the example is Francois vase. It's a large volute crater made by Eratosthenes and painted by Cletus between 570 to 565 BCE, which is 66 cm high and 26 inches, and covered in 220 human and animal figures depicting an astonishing range of scenes and characters from Greek mythology. So for the Greek jewelry, we have the set of jewelry. This group of jewelry is said to be from Miletus on the European side of the Hellespont. The gold diadem is richly worked in repose with an elaborate floral pattern. Dionysus, the god of wine, and his wife Ariadne sat in the center. Muses playing musical instruments perched among vines along the sides. The tiny figure of a muse playing a lyre also appears just above the crescent form on each of the boat-shaped earrings. The seed-like pendants of the earrings are identical to those on the elaborate necklace. The famous Greek artists are these 6 sculptors: Myron, Phidias, Polycletus, Praxiteles, Scopas, and Lysippus are among the most famous artists in ancient Greece. Most of their work has been lost except as it survives in Roman and later copies. Art during the Archaic period was stylized but became more realistic during the Classical period. During the ancient Greece, these are the famous Greek artworks. So I have here a video about the Greek art, and I prepared this for you to further analyze and have a lot of knowledge about the history of the Greek art.
Greek art and architecture. Greek art is characterized by its devotion to the many gods and goddesses that were a part of Grecian culture before the rise of Christianity in Europe. Most of what has survived from these periods of Greek art is its sculpture, architecture, and pottery. The artworks as well as the architecture are easily identified by historians through an abundant use of symbolism as it relates to each of the deities it is meant to worship. Within the AP Art History curriculum, Greek sculpture is separated into three categories based on the age and style of each of the works: archaic, 600 to 480 BC, classical, 480 to 323 BC, and Hellenistic, 323 to 30 BC. Archaic sculpture is the most ancient of the three periods and is best represented by the few grave monuments that have stood the test of time. The most notable of these sculptures are the Kouros, which take the form of young male warriors and serve as grave markers. These figures stand facing the viewer with idealistic features of perfect symmetry. The Anavisis Kouros from 530 BC demonstrates the transition of sculpture in this period to more realistic features and dynamic stance. This Kouros might have originally been painted with bright colors, similar to that of the Peplos Kouros, and painted with its archaic smile to bring a sense of life to the figure. However, this sculpture is not meant as a portrait of a particular man, but a general representation of a male warrior. Classical sculpture is distinguished from archaic works by its use of contrapposto, or the asymmetrical balance of hips and shoulders and the shift of weight to a particular side. Figures are still incredibly idealized, with the measured proportions or canons that served as rules for the perfect body. During this period, elderly rulers were depicted as young warriors with strong and muscular bodies. Polycletus's Doryphorus, or the Spear Bearer, is a marble sculpture of a young athlete with alternating elements of tense and relaxed appendages, a perfect model for contrapposto. The sculpture was found in Pompeii inside of a gym-like center, though he was not originally designed in Italy. The original classical sculpture does not survive today because when the Romans took over Greece, they made marble copies of Greek bronze sculpture using lost wax casting so the bronze could be melted down for weapons. Hellenistic sculpture is identified by its greater use of movement and realistic modeling, creating a heightened sense of drama. There are clear expressions by the figures of joy or misery, invoking more emotional reactions than former styles. Additionally, negative space is used more creatively, allowing for sculptures to be viewed from all sides and angles. The seated boxer from 100 BC is a rare Hellenistic bronze, depicts a more elderly athlete defeated and injured in a fight. Copper is used to highlight different parts of the figures. In addition to sculpture, Greek art included innovations in pottery. Red and black figure designs decorate amphoras or craters, types of vases meant to hold wine or oil. These figures painted on each vase reflected classical and Hellenistic styles of contrapposto and dynamics. In the Niobedes crater from 460 BC, the artist depicted the story of Niobe, a woman who bragged about her fertility to the goddess Leto, mother of Apollo and Artemis. As a punishment for her hubris, Leto's twins kill each of Niobe's 12 children. This vase is also significant because it is the first of its kind to neglect the use of isocephalism, a tradition of depicting heads on the same level. Greek architecture was designed primarily as temples to honor the pagan gods, but these structures were not meant to be accessed by the public. The front and the back of the temples were nearly indistinguishable for this reason, the only difference being their statuary decorations. The temple facade would have had a pediment, cornice, metopes, triglyphs, architrave, and columns. These columns are made up of capitals and shafts, with 3 different types of capitals to distinguish between. Doric, the most simplistic, Ionic with scroll-like fixtures, and Corinthian, made up of small leaves surrounding the column. Perhaps the most notable work of Greek architecture is the Parthenon, constructed atop the Acropolis in Athens. The temple is Doric with different Ionic elements within the rear room and the interior frieze. Another important revelation during this time in Greece was the use of algebra and geometry to create the proportions of the Parthenon. This temple was meant to honor the goddess Athena, and throughout antiquity, a gigantic statue of the goddess stood inside, decorated with gold and ivory. Greek art on the whole was an extremely influential period for future artistic movements. The traditions of this era completely inspired the Italian Renaissance, a rebirth of the classical era inspired by the ancient masters. Although much of what originally existed, whether it be paintings, bronze sculptures, buildings, or pottery that failed to survive the centuries, Greek art continues to influence the artistic and especially the architectural world in the modern day.
And that would be all. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have learned something from my report. Thank you, and God bless us all.